Welcome back to my channel. I've got a product here today that I've really been looking forward to doing a review on. It seems like here lately there has been a lot of attention brought to neck tension. I've been seeing a lot of videos and a lot of talk about it, like on the internet, and everybody's using like bushing dyes and different brands of neck bushings and expander mandrels and that sort of thing. Well, I think this product here does a really great job at expanding case necks. And what it is it uses these pin gauges. And these things are a very common tool used in like machining and, for machinists and that sort of thing. And you can buy them in almost any different size known to man about it. Like you can see this one is a 2225, a 0.2225, so 222 and a half thousandths, and the little minus there that you see after the 5, that means that if there is errors in the gauge, it's gonna err on the lesser side. Like it might be 0.2224 if it's not dead on, dead on the money. They're going to ensure you that it is no bigger than 0.2225. And you can also buy them that are pluses, and that will assure you that it is absolutely no smaller than 0.2225. So, this company is Porter's Precision out of Texas. And it turns out Kenneth Porter actually holds a 1,000 yard NRA record with metallic sights, I believe. I think he shot a 219 X's. That is pretty incredible, and I would suspect he was probably using this product when he when he did it, or something very similar to this. He offers several different die bodies. This one on the left here is a short die, and this one is a long one. I think he might offer 2 or 3 others for like more kind of obscure calibers that are like really big. I think he calls them extra wide. The short one is going to handle all your like 223, 308 size cases, probably about near anything that would fit in a short action rifle. The longer one might be better suited for stuff like 30-06, 300 Win Mag, and that sort of thing. However, I think depending on your press, you might be able to use the short one for some of those longer calibers. It just kind of depends on the amount of clearance you have between your shell holder and where your die is thread into on your press. We'll get to that a little bit later. But I'm going to show you how you set one of these things up. They're pretty cool. They have a collet inside the die, and the main thing that was mentioned in the instructions that you don't want to do is just drop the collet into the die body and then set the cap down on there and start screwing it down. That can damage the collet. There is a groove in here that the collet actually snaps into a groove in the cap. I also wanted to mention that he does sell these starter kits. Like you can get whatever die body that you want to that you would need, and then you can also get it in caliber specific starter kits. Like this one's the 22 short starter, and meaning for the short die. And I think it comes with 4 different pin gauges, and they vary in half thousandth increments in size. And he has the same thing for other calibers. Like here's a 30 caliber long. That's what my other die was, and this one's for like a 308, and I think it starts at like 307 and then goes down to 306 and a half, 306, and then 305.5, I believe, is what is included. And he does do a great job of tapering these things. You can actually buy your own gauge pins, or if you already have a set, you won't need any at all. You would just need to put a taper on the end of the pin so it starts in the case mouth a little more easily. So let me get things settled or kind of cleared off here a little bit, and we'll set one of these things up. Okay, so when you're wanting to get your die set up, the first thing you do is you take the collet and you actually insert it into the lid of or into your threaded cap on the die, and you can kind of push it in a little bit, and you might have to turn it just a little bit when you do it. Okay, you may have heard that, but you can see how it's in the cap now, and it kind of has some wobble. That's what you want. Now you can start it in the die, and I usually just take like the pin gauge and make sure your taper is going down, and you can actually just stand it up on the table like that and just screw it down, and there you have it. It's just barely sticking above the collet, so I know my collet's getting good contact, and you can just tighten it down by hand for now. When it gets in the press, I find that's a lot easier to get your wrenches and tighten it down pretty snug, so you don't have to worry about it pulling out of the collet. I believe the die body is an 11/16, and the cap is about an inch, I think. So you'd need 11/16 and a 1-inch wrench, or you could just use an adjustable or something like that, which is probably what I'm going to do. So now that we have that installed, let's get it in the press. Okay, so I did a little bit of measuring, and best I can tell, as long as when you run a case up into the die to be expanded, if you stay below the threads on the of the cap, like essentially if you kind of stay below the very top of your wrench flat right there, you're not going to have to worry about your case actually hitting the collet up in there. That's one thing you got to be mindful of. You can't just screw these things all the way down, then run a case all the way up in there. You're going to come to a really abrupt stop when the case mouth actually runs into the collet, which could probably really booger up your case necks pretty bad. So the way I have checked mine, if you have a progressive press, I'm going to show you a method that should work for progressive presses as well as single stage presses. So what I did on a progressive press is, if you take the case that you're going to be using, like this one is a 223, I just took some calipers here and just kind of vaguely gave my measured how long the case neck is, which you could probably go in the into a loading manual and get that same kind of information. But okay, so I'm somewhere in the ballpark of about 230 thousandths there, so I'm just gonna call it 250 just to be extra safe. So what I'm gonna do now is put the I've already got my cap tight and everything, and my dies screwed all the way in, and what I'm going to do is raise the ram up until I just feel the case neck start making contact with the expander mandrel, and right there it is. I'm just barely putting any pressure at all down here with my thumb. Well, now since I've got a progressive, I can actually drop my dial calipers in. Let's see, I might have to zoom out here a little bit or back up. This is always a little bit tricky with a camera. So, yeah, you might be able to see that now, maybe. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can actually see what's going on. Okay, what I've done here is I've just adjusted my calipers really far out, and I'm just going to run them down to where they stop, and I'm just going to count my rotations. I know I need at least 250 thousandths of the neck to go up in there now to make full contact with the expander. So we're sitting on about 20, so I'm just going to count the rotations. So there's 100 thousandths, 200 thousandths, there's 250 that I knew I needed, and as you can see, I've got it set up to where it actually goes down to a little bit past 300. So I know I'm definitely not in danger of hitting the collet up in there with the with the case mouth, and I also know that I've got, you know, full contact going on with the expander mandrel. So now I'm going to get reset up here for if maybe you didn't have a progressive press, where you didn't have another way of measuring out of you know, where your dies would thread into, and I'll show you kind of what I come up with on that. Okay, so if what you have is a single stage press and you're wanting to know how much you need to run the case up into the die to get full contact, I've already got another piece of brass sitting in the shell holder there, and I'm tearing off a piece of just masking tape right here. And what I'm going to do is just, again, raise the ram up until I just feel the case start hitting the expander mandrel, and right there it is, and it'll hold itself there. Now I'm just going to take that piece of tape that I tore off, and I'm just going to stick it down here right where the I'm going to put it right down on the frame where the you know, where the ram contacts the frame of the press, right at the bottom. And now what you can do is just take a case and just the same thing that you're using, and I should be able to well, it's a little tricky to do this around a camera and with one hand, so I'm just going to hold that there. And now what you can do is just visually look and see if the bottom of that masking tape right here passes the case neck, and as you can see, it does. I'm actually below the shoulder, so you know, that's another way if you're just wanting to set it up to where you're, you know, not having to worry about your case mouth bottoming out against the collet. That's another little trick that I found, and that's actually probably about as easy as anything, even on a progressive press. So anyway, hopefully that helps you out a little bit on setting these things up. So as far as the short die possibly working for larger calibers, or longer calibers, I'm going to just start it in my press there, and I've got my ram raised all the way up, and I'm just going to sit this is a 300 Win Mag case here. As you can see, I've actually I've just got my 223 shell holder here in this Hornady progressive press. So I'm just going, instead of having to go to the trouble to change my shell holder out, I'm just going to sit it on top of the shell holder, which is actually raising the case up higher than it would be if I did have the correct shell holder on there. So I'm going to go ahead and just raise that up there, and let me grab a little Allen wrench here. Sorry for the shaky camera work. Okay, this should help give us a pointer to where the top of the to where the actual top of the case mouth is. So now remember, as long as you are below the essentially, as long as the neck don't go up above the top of the flat there on the die body, the wrench flat, you're in good shape. And as you can see, we've got, let's see, how many turns am I in right now? Okay, I'm out. Okay, you can watch the little screw head there. Well, I got it cross-threaded. There we go. All right, so there's 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, 4, 5, 6, like at least 7, and I've still got the thickness of that Allen wrench worth of clearance. So on a Hornady press, you can get by with the short die for even doing long action calibers like 300 Win Mag. Now I don't know how much longer you could go, but you can for sure do at least 300 Win Mag length. And you know, speaking of progressive presses, that's really where these things shine, because, you know, I know it was a common practice for a lot of people to use like a bullet puller to hold pin gauges if you were wanting to use those to expand with, and that's a great idea if you're using a single stage press, because on a single stage you don't have to worry about making a full stroke of the ram, but whereas on a progressive, you have to make a full stroke to get for everything to work out. You can't half stroke anything, or you can if you want to use it in a progressive fashion. So that's where these dies just really shine, because they're made to hold pin gauges and work in a press, unlike a bullet puller. So I think this is a really awesome product. The fit and finish is really nice. It is a precision made die, and I'm looking forward to using it more in my reloads, and I think this is a worthwhile investment if you are looking for the best way to get very consistent neck tension. So, thanks again for watching, and I will be talking to you again soon.